In this episode of the Exploring Information Security podcast, how to navigate a career in cybersecurity.
Computers now have primary control of critical functions.
Houston, recommend vector transfer.
Your go for APU shutdown on time.
Roger, go for deploy.
Nice to be in orbit.
Welcome to the Exploring Information Security podcast, where you will learn, explore, and grow your security mindset. I'm your host, Timothy D. Block, and in this episode, we'll be exploring how to navigate a career in cybersecurity. With me to do that is Ralph Collum, a senior cybersecurity instructor at Training Concepts. Show notes can be found at exploresec.com/EIS. You can support the podcast by donating. There's a donate button on the website. You can sign up for the newsletter. They're on the bottom of a lot of different pages and blog posts and all over the place. You can also hit me up directly at timothy.dblock@exploresec.com with any sort of feedback. You can also connect with me on LinkedIn. If you connect with me on LinkedIn, make sure to let me know that you listen to the podcast, and I will happily connect. You can also rate the podcast on your favorite podcast platform. So something new I'm going to start doing is events. So we've got some upcoming events here. A couple that I'll be at is B-Sides Greenville and B-Sides Augusta, both really great events. Greenville's not one I've been to before, but I am going to be speaking there this year, which is going to be great. It's my threat modeling talk, which I've been doing all throughout this year. So really looking forward to that. And the B-Sides Augusta is just a staple for me. I go there every year. It just lines up with my family's time off, and so we go down and I get dropped off at the conference. Essentially, my wife and kids go off and do some other stuff. But we will have quite a few people there. So if you're going to be at the event, let us know. Would love to hang out either Friday, Saturday night, and during the conference, of course. And then PractiSec is doing, this is Tim Tomes' course. We've done a podcast on the practical web application penetration testing course. He is doing that. It's an at-home version, so you can just do it virtually. And then he's also doing his more advanced course called the PBAT, which is the advanced tactics, essentially, for Burp Suite. So if you're looking for some really great training at a really great price, I would definitely check out that. That's at practisec.com/events. He doesn't do a lot of these. So, them being available right now, and it's September 9th. I'm pulling up the website. I had the website up right now, but it looks like early September for the PWAP, and then the PBAT is late October. And again, those are both remote and live sessions. And if you register both, you get a special pricing, get a discount on both courses. I have sent several AppSec people that worked for me through that course, and even pen testers, and they've always said that they've gotten a lot out of that course. So would absolutely recommend the course. And I'm trying to get Tim on to talk about the course again to kind of promote his thing, but wanted to shout out him for that. And this is in 2024, by the way. So if you listen to this after 2024, just go to the website and see if he's got some new events up. B-Sides Greenville and B-Sides Augusta, hopefully, are still going then too. So this podcast is one Ralph came and presented at the local user group I help run called Colasec. I've had him on the podcast before to talk about certifications. He was with Training Concept then, which is several years ago, and he's still with Training Concepts. So really great company. They do a lot of training as well, and they do on-site in Columbia, South Carolina, but they also have some remote options. So I definitely check out them. But wanted to have him on to talk about career and navigating a career within security. A lot of it is kind of getting into security in the first place. Which I get asked about a lot. So we kind of have just a conversation about some of that different stuff and different ways people can get in. And then once you're in, like what you need to do to continue your career within cybersecurity. So with that, let's get right into it.
We've done one before with the certifications, but so this is like a good just revisit to people getting into security and kind of what you're seeing from your perspective.
Yeah. I get a lot. I mean, obviously through the school, we get a lot of people that are transitioning job role wise. So a lot of folks that come to, Training Concepts, they're, getting out of the military, and we want to be able to support them through that transition. And IT and security and and just in general, technology is such a huge domain that a lot of people that come out, they're already doing some of those, job roles anyway in the military. So it's almost a kind of a good transition for them, some of them. And then just being able to kind of, the way we do it now is they go through these, what I call cohort, I think is the name they use, but it's almost like a program. And as they go through the program, they're getting like, Net Plus, Security Plus, they're getting a lot of the certification classes. And then they're also getting like experience. So they get an intern, they get assigned as an internship. And then as they go through that and they finish the program, there's all the soft skills building, resume building, all the extra stuff on top of that, an interview, they get an interview as kind of their, topping on the cake to try to, get a job. And a lot of them, ton of them, that's how they transition. So it's, almost to try to kind of be a bridge for them as they're going through that process.
Are you seeing like a majority of military people? Because one of the things I've always recommended to people is check out the military. They'll essentially train you for free, and because that's how I got into IT. Was I was an electronics technician. Now I think now if you definitely want to get into cybersecurity, they've got like whole programs just for that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So like next week, I'll be teaching the SISM class to the Navy. And, we do federal contracts like that where, at Shaw Air Force Base and a couple others where they'll come in and what they'll want to do is they want to do like massive training. So, the Navy's so big, they got people. I mean, I'll start the class around 10:30 or so Eastern because they got people from San Diego and Hawaii and all over the place that are connecting to these classes. And they're getting basically what you said, like free certification training and stuff like that. And they get a voucher, they get, the whole shabill, right? To be able to, get the certification. Some of them have to get the certification to maintain their job role. Some of them just kind of want it to be able to expand out their knowledge set. So, I definitely think the military, I mean, it's always been great for that, but, getting them, certified and getting them skilled up, definitely a great place to, or where you see a lot of people come from.
Are you seeing a lot more kind of remote training?
Oh, 100%. Yeah. So I'd say probably 80-20 still. So what we're kind of transitioning to is more of a hybrid model. I prefer I like the still the in-person training, but everybody, I mean, we teach students that are, like I said, all over the place. So, if I'm here teaching a class and they're in like San Diego or something, I mean, obviously remote's the only thing we got. And so transitioning to that's been a little bit tricky, but you adjust, right? So you try to find ways to be as interactive as possible. So we'll do like you probably heard of like Kahoots and stuff like that. So we do a ton of those, and we do it, a bunch of like practical labs together, and you just gotta include them, right? When you're doing like the remote training and stuff like that. So it's a little bit of a challenge, but not too bad. I mean, I do still miss people. The face to face is always, it would be also preferred, but just in the current landscape of things, we do, I'd say 80% of our training model is where students are coming remote.
Gotcha. Yeah. And the pandemic really kind of changed a lot of that. So we kind of talked about the military. What are some other paths that you talk about with people about trying to get into security and navigate that career?
It's so interesting. So I was at the CompTIA conference last week, and they have a lot of, perspective of people that are, wanting to get into technology even more than we do. So it's interestingly enough, the executive for CompTIA, he always likes to celebrate, the Uber driver that really wants to, make a better life for themselves. And so far that, that's been one of the models, and even my model, similar to that, I guess a little bit, is where, my career journey, out of college, I was a chemist, right? So I went to college to be a chemist, bachelor in chemistry. And I did that for a while. But the problem I discovered kind of, I guess, out of college is that being a chemist is almost like working a manufacturing job. So you go in, you make a bunch of standards in the lab, and then the product that they're mixing or they're making, albuterol or ibuprofen, whatever it is, they're making it. All you do is test it against a set of standards, and you make sure that the product is not going to kill somebody, and it's a quality product. and then you just ship it out. And that's all you do is you're almost like quality control. And so I did that for, I guess, 5 years. And I was like, this is going nowhere. And to do all the cool research stuff, in a chemist, I would have to go back to school and get my doctorate. And I was like, well, I don't love this job enough. Plus I was also a klutz. So sometimes I would be in the lab and I'd get like some kind of chemical in my face. One time my eyeball got all jacked up. So, yeah. So I was like, this might not be the best career for me, just being a little bit, of a klutz. So then my wife had a friend that was in IT, and that honestly was my path into IT. Is I got into a point or a transaction where I was like, okay, I don't know anything about IT, but when I went to school, computers was all programming, and I got to learn C++ and Fortran and all this stuff. And I was like, no way I'm doing that. It didn't fit my, I don't know. It didn't feel like what I was there for, right? As a journey, as a job role. So, but the person I met that did IT was doing none of that. Setting up networks and firewall, all these things that I was like, oh, this is pretty cool. I like this side of the computer. So after I took a bunch of training classes and started to learn IT, I became a server admin and started doing, some basic server administration. So setting up networks, setting up user roles and all those kind of things. I was like, this is great. And then I started doing that for a while. And then I kind of transitioned to an auditor. And I don't know how I jumped into that, but basically the company needed somebody to read through a bunch of documentation and make sure that we're doing things above board. And so that became kind of my journey into InfoSec, was starting as kind of an auditor, looking at a bunch of things that the organization had to be doing because of regulatory requirements. And I was like, this is kind of cool too. So not only do I get to play with the technical side of things, I can also make sure that the business is not impacted because, they're dotting their I's and crossing their T's. And then I got a little bit more into it and teaching. And once I got into teaching, I got to get back into more of the technical side. And I taught my first Security Plus class and my first CEH class, ethical hacker class. And at that point, I was like, man, this is really cool stuff. And that led me into doing penetration testing. And it was penetration testing to me was kind of a different type of auditing. It was giving me the opportunity to see where the organization is kind of fallen down, either their policies or their people or their technology, and try to kind of help them become more resilient to those kind of things and not have to worry about attackers kind of just knocking on their door, so to speak. So that's my road. That's kind of how I came in. I've been teaching cybersecurity for 10 plus years now. And that's kind of been my journey through that process.
Yeah, that's what I tell people too, is that the biggest thing about security is that you have to know how to configure stuff to tell people they're not configuring it right. Because I see us as hall monitors, essentially. Security wouldn't exist if people are following the documentation and configuring and setting up things in the right way. We exist because they don't do that. And so I do. And I think you did say it during your talk that you came up through IT and recommend that for people because it gives you kind of that context and that understanding of the technology.
Yeah, I think that's the best way to go. If I'm looking at how you get into IT or excuse me, cybersecurity, it's definitely the IT route, because you're going to get exposed to so many things in the world of technology that, for us, even just learning about how the business does operations with technology, I mean, that can in of itself be extremely valid for somebody in cybersecurity that's trying to provide, a strategic approach to protecting, in this case, the organization.
Yeah, and I think the other thing that really stuck with me when you were talking too was learning, constant learning. And I feel like, and that's actually what keeps me engaged in the field itself, is that it is ever changing, but you have to kind of continue to learn, because there's like new attacks, new techniques. There's even just in general within IT, like new technology on a regular basis. Like the what you and I knew 10 years ago isn't as applicable as it is today. Some of the basic concepts are there, but as far as like the technology's changed, the underlying technology, and like how we go about doing some of that stuff.
Absolutely. I think whatever makes you want to learn more. And I think that for my journey was why I really didn't like the chemist role, because I felt like I came in there and I was just doing the same thing over and over again. But it's, in cybersecurity and even in IT, it feels like almost it's not really just a job. It's something that, you're often kind of go through. And while you have to be extremely well versed in different technologies and those kind of things are even important in cybersecurity, how threats might impact you, you're going to also too learn how the business is managed. And, a lot of that dynamic nature of the field, I think of itself is really where a lot of people that are the people that love puzzles or love analytical stuff. I mean, it really scratches that itch for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's actually funny too that you mentioned like the mundane stuff. And what I tell people too, because the red team, right? The red team or pen testing is what a lot of people want to get into. I'm like, that's like 70% writing. Like you are writing a report and explaining simple concepts to executives on like why their application is vulnerable. And you have to actually give like, here's how you fix this stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a huge part of it. A lot of people skip on that sometimes too. Like I'm thinking, if just looking at people just wanting to get into cybersecurity or technology, I mean, if you are a person that is, a detail-oriented person, or you just, for me, I just like computers, right? I know I didn't want to, build applications and be a developer, but I was a huge tech enthusiast, right? And the ability to, in the field of IT and or cyber, the ability to be adaptable and be a team player, be a good communicator, a lot of the soft skills, believe it or not, I feel like that's a huge area that a lot of people just kind of it goes a little bit unnoticed that, some of those soft skills are so important to nurture in the field of technology and or cyber.
Well, and you're absolutely right, because we have, because again, we're going to people and either telling them something's wrong that they did, or we have to essentially call their baby ugly.
Yeah.
And so like to your point though, like soft skills are hugely important, and that's not always something that I felt technology people do really well. Like I think you and I are in a bit of a different we're different creatures in that aspect, because you're doing training. I've actually switched over to security awareness. I've done all the technical stuff, and I got into management. And you want to talk about soft skills? Like let's you got to be friendly with everybody, even if the other managers' teams are screwing up on a regular basis. So you kind of have to have that temperament for that. But even if you're technical, right, is I've got to go out there and explain to people. And as a security awareness person, I've got to be friendly and likable, because otherwise no one's going to listen to me.
100%. Yeah, I totally agree. I usually tell people the three key pillars to advancing your success in cyber or technology. While you have to have a tremendous amount of technical strength in some aspects of it, managers today are often looking for those leadership skills and emotional intelligence, decision making. A lot of those soft skills are huge. And I feel like that one's a huge part of it that sometimes, at least for me in the early days of pen testing, oh man, I always wanted to do was just hack boxes all day.
Right.
And, that wasn't really the value that the business was going to get out of it. I wanted to communicate well. I wanted to help them be a problem solver for their organization, and be able to do all those kind of things. Took a little bit of an adjustment in the area of soft skills. I couldn't just have the passion to do things technology wise and work hard there. I had to have a little bit extra that was something on a side that was not really those hard skills as much as it was the soft skills.
Yeah. So one of the things I've started telling people is and this is the question of who should get into cybersecurity, right? If you want money, cybersecurity is not the spot anymore. It's actually trade skills. You want to have an easy job. They're struggling to get people, and you can make a lot of money in trade skills, right? Just going and doing plumbing. And that to me can be people mock it, and I think, well, not only mock it but look down on it, and it's like it's a lot of the same concepts that you're going to see within security. But who do you think is it well, like if someone's trying to decide if they want to get into cybersecurity, like who is that person?
Oh, that's a great question. So I think you're somewhat right there. I think, the more interesting thing to me is in the form of how you get educated to be able to be in technology and or cybersecurity. It's, where there are a lot of, like, if I was to be a lawyer or a doctor or something like that. Yeah, I mean, you definitely don't want your doctor or something like that not having a degree and or having even a master's level, right?
They need to have some certification and a lot of recertification.
Yeah, there definitely needs to be some time and effort there. So I think that's one of the things that I found so attracting in the world of technology and cybersecurity is I met people that didn't have a specific degree in IT or a specific degree in cybersecurity, and still they were really, really awesome at their job. And I think that goes down to the concept of what the makeup looks like for somebody that wants to get into cybersecurity. So here I go. I'm gonna give you a couple of things I've seen. I think the people that are the analytical thinkers, if you enjoy doing puzzles or you like if you're a good problem solver, you're going to be a great fit for cybersecurity. So, because we're always, I hate to say we're always putting out fires, but a lot of times it is like that in organizations where you're trying to kind of help the organization continue to grow and adjust to a lot of different challenges, we'll say. So I think that's a person that fits really good in this role. Like I said, I came from being a tech enthusiast and a strong interest in technology. And, I was using it day in and day out. So if it's a person, like if you come from the military and you work all the time on computer systems and interact with them all the time, I mean, it might be that you could fit really well in the realm of cybersecurity. So I think those, and one of the biggest ones, again, there's so many things here. You have to want to continue your learning experience. So that's a little bit different than a person that, if this system is always going to be this way, and I just need to make sure that it's always maintaining operations, it's hard to say that cybersecurity is the same thing. Cybersecurity constantly evolving. So, it's going to be regularly going through, learning about how an adversary is doing this or doing that, and learning best practices that do change over time. I mean, for the longest time, we said, well, the firewall maybe back in the day again, the firewall wasn't that important. Why do we need a firewall? Why do we need all these things? And it comes over time that we start finding the reason behind why we need encryption, right? For the longest time, everything was HTTP, right? So that evolution and over time, as new threats and new things come out, I mean, look at IoT, look at, cloud, look at, AI, all these things are going to just continue to come, which is exciting for people that are technologists, but also require that constant learning and that constant adapting to those situations to become overall helping that organization the most you can. So it's just so many diverse things there. I think pinpointing one person that would be perfect for that particular industry is really hard.
Yeah, no, I think you hit on it though, like problem solving. And I mean, you talked about fires, but I'll say, because I've done incident response. I'll jump in if like the organization's doing it, and I've found myself pretty good at like figuring out like what's the problem is and fixing it, or identifying attackers, things like that. But what I actually really enjoy doing is like the proactive side, like working with developers, building out a vulnerability management. And to that point, like, again, I have to work with, and this kind of goes back to the soft skills, I've got to work with other departments. And so I have to have a good relationship with them to get things done. Because if you don't have a good relationship, you ain't getting anything done. But on top of that, you're going to run into building out these programs. You're going to run into problems like the business still needs to operate, and there might be like legacy or some old business process in place that's going to take I'm not even weeks or months, but like years for them to put in place. And you understand that there's a vulnerability there, but you still have to figure out the best way to mitigate that. And so, like, to your point about problem solving, I think that's absolutely something that people need to enjoy doing to get into the field.
Yeah. Overall, I mean, a career in cybersecurity is going to offer so many more benefits than some of the other things. At least me, I mean, that's my feeling, right? So being able to be in that dynamic situation, technology and cyber is not going anywhere. So there's good job security there. And the biggest thing, I think this is kind of the way I phrase it for a lot of folks. You can make a tangible impact. You can be an avenger for that organization, a superhero, someone that helps them, like you were saying, preventatively do things maybe that, while it requires a little bit of adjustment, can be highly rewarding as an outcome, right? And something that can be of value to the organization, make them more risk aware, help them to build their cybersecurity posture. And as the end result and the end outcome, protecting that valuable information, it's going to make a big impact in the organization that you're trying to protect.
Yeah, absolutely. How are you seeing AI impacting people trying to get in to the field?
So I get the AI question a lot from students. And one of the things I'll say, even kind of previous to our question that we had, is I try to ask the students and make sure they understand the job role that cybersecurity has for the organization. Protecting assets, making sure that the business continues operations, resiliency, all those kind of things, and that we are the risk advisors for the organization. So in regards to AI, while it's kind of the new hotness and everybody wants to talk Chat GPT or Gemini and all these kind of great things, you even see it in ads and movies before you go see the flick. I do feel like it's going to still be an emerging kind of technology for organizations to kind of evaluate as it progresses. And in cybersecurity, heck, it might be something awesome for us. So the ability to kind of start collaborating in different ways, thinking of different things, seeing things differently. So, I mean, my technology hat kind of comes on here, and I'm super geeked about it. So I'm excited to see what it brings for the future. Do I feel like it's going to get rid of humans and cause us all kinds of different extra things? I don't know. I don't know if I'm kind of hesitant to put that, Skynet hat on. But I do feel like it will change things, right? Just like IoT changes things, just like mobile changes things in the enterprise space, the enterprise will have to adopt and or try to figure out how it works to better the business. But think about sales, think about other things where AI, even just in general analytics, think how AI can make a huge impact for the business to grow the business. So anybody in cyber, anybody in technology has got to figure out how to adjust, just like they adjusted with mobile, just like they adjusted with cloud and IoT.
Oh, I'm glad you said that, because that's what I tell people. It's like, this isn't anything, like if you've been through some of that stuff, and maybe some people are going through it for the first time, it's just like, and people freak out about this stuff ahead of time. And it's like you don't really need to have like a full understanding of the technology. You just need to understand kind of the attack surface, what's the actual problem. I did a talk last year on APIs, and because people are like, what are APIs? And and so trying to explain all that stuff. But it's like APIs are actually an improvement for security within an application, because it limits, SQL injection and cross-site scripting, and eliminates some of those vulnerabilities, or at least reduces them significantly. And now you just have to worry about misconfiguration and authorization authentication, which creates its own problems. But like once you understand that, it's like, okay, we have our strategy. And I think AI is the same way. It's probably more about maybe some injection, but it's probably more about like just not even putting your proprietary stuff in there or putting sensitive information. So it's a lot more about like data leaks and stuff. But once you understand that, like it's a lot similar to, again, like you're saying, like mobile, cloud, they're just different areas.
100% agree. I tell my students all the time, I mean, our job as risk advisors is to evaluate things, and we're always going to be pressing forward. That's the great thing, is the maturity of cybersecurity for the organization that you work in is I'm always trying to see, how can I evolve? How can I take today and make it better than it was yesterday? And my strategy overall might be long-term, right? I might not even see the fruits of what I'm building, but I'm going down that path and I'm helping others to get better in that. And that is enough for me to be able to be comfortable with that, no matter if I work for the company for 10 years or for the rest of my life.
Yep. And I feel like a lot of people are still trying to figure out, even the business trying to figure out AI, but we can't come in and say no right off the bat. We got to kind of build those relationships again, and work along with them. One of the things I want to do though is kind of flip that on its head. How are you seeing it impact people as far as like trying to get into the field?
Right. So I can only kind of tell you from a perspective of what I've seen in like the education space. And so in the education space, it's hard because we feel like AI is going to kind of give the student almost like, how we oftentimes jokingly say this, but in IT, I mean, we use Google a lot, right? We're going to Google this, or we're going to look at Stack Overflow. So will it impact the ability for the person that's in the cybersecurity career field already advance their skills? I do feel like it's going to help us find things and answers to challenges potentially better, maybe because we're also recycling what we're asking it, right? Which is kind of strange of a concept, but it's almost like we are trying to find a good sounding board in some cases. And if ChatGPT or something like that can be that good sounding board, I think it's going to be helpful. But as far as in education, where the concern lies is in like cheating and stuff like that, where here almost I would say is if I went to a job interview and I had Google, or I went to a job interview and I had a ChatGPT and I was writing a paper or I was writing a resume, there might be some falsehoods there that can kind of negatively skew that individual that's trying to get that job in cybersecurity or in IT. So I feel like that's, maybe the more darker side where you start seeing education in general not allow for ChatGPT in the space because they feel like it's going to feed you either the wrong answers or the answers that might be not learning as a process, but just kind of cheating. So I don't know. I find that at least that's the hurdle right now is either in the falsification of information or the using it to kind of create resumes where it tries to, bolster something that, is not real. And then it's like cutting the fact, right? So how do I figure out if this is really you or this is something that you made up through using ChatGPT, even though it sounds really good?
Yeah. Well, I did a job search early part of this year, in the last year, and I did use ChatGPT to like write cover letters, playing around with it. I mean, to your point, I think it's a first draft of anything. So you should never just take the first draft and just shove it into a thing. But I had it like look over my resume. I had it like give me a better format, and I adjusted it a little bit, but I kind of still kept the same format because at the end of the day, like the resume should be a reflection of me, even if its style is not appropriate. And really, it's just a piece of paper to get you to the interview, right? I found that it was useful in that I will say like, it does a better job of talking about me than I talk about me. I'm not one of those, extravagant people. I actually kind of probably do the opposite. I undervalue and underplay some of the stuff I've done. So ChatGPT did help me with like that voice of like, oh yeah, I do kind of kick ass, right? So that's when you're going into an interview. Honestly, you want to have energy and say you kick ass.
Yeah, I love that. That sounds great. And even me, when I'm an educator, I want to be able to look at things in many different avenues and different approaches. So like having examples, I mean, where I used to read, and I still read tons and tons of books to get advice on how to format things and talk about things and styles and stuff like that. I feel like sometimes I just want something else, right? So ChatGPT as a way to kind of formulate a discussion question, or, if I'm in class and I want to talk about a particular topic and I want to get some resources, just kind of the tip of the iceberg kind of thing. So I can start doing some more further development of my notes. It does an awesome job at doing some of those things.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. One of the other things I wish I'd done more of is I had a couple technical assessments is using ChatGPT for my technical assessment. I tried it afterwards and I was like, God, and it popped up one of the questions I had for like a voice or a technical look over, of stuff. But I think it was also really good in helping me. What I like to do when I interview is I like to write down questions I might potentially get asked. But in this case, I had ChatGPT. I said, here's the job description. Here's my resume. Give me based on this questions I might be asked and some potential talking points. Right. And that's
great.
And then I took those and then I practiced them out loud. Right. Because you can say them in your head, but it's not until you practice them out loud that it really, and so that is one of the use cases I found that AI was really helpful with.
Yeah, that makes sense because you're going to see questions in an interview like how do you stay updated with the latest trends and technology and cybersecurity? Even down to as simple as can you define cybersecurity's role in the business? What's its job, right, to do for the business? And I think those kind of opportunities. I mean, it's a great use of a resource.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of resources, what do you recommend for people trying to navigate their current cybersecurity?
Awesome. So there's a lot of different things. We've been talking so much about different things, but I think one thing that's kind of been, a staple for me is being able to expose anybody that wants to get into the field of cybersecurity to as much of what cybersecurity's role is going to be in the business as possible. So, the first thing I would say is if you can find, a class online or take a class, maybe like Security Plus, for example, a great entry point into exploring lots and lots of topics in security, everything from auditing to penetration testing, red teaming, blue teaming. Looking at malware. So get as broadly exposed to the field as you can. And maybe that's a class or maybe it's a book, right? That's another thing I would say. So earlier in my career in cybersecurity, I was just gobbling up as many books as I could. And man, everything from The Cold to the Dead Cow, Spam Nation. So many different things. I know, I'm trying to think of the awesome social engineer, Kevin Mitnick. Got so many good books from him. Chris Hadnacky, so many good books. So I would gobble up books like crazy. So, get yourself a Kindle or go look up the cybersecurity canon. It's been around for a while. Pick out a couple books out of there and just get at it, man. I love books because they give you someone's perspective on things. And so I like that for management skill books and helping me be a better manager and or soft skills. I also love it for perspective on cyber. So I think, between these two, those are awesome resources to have. Let's see what else. Oh, so many good ones. Okay. So I'm big like you on threat news websites. And so, I early on, again, I got two different ones. So I'll have usually on a daily basis, 30 or more tabs open that are, going off to sites like HelpNet Security, Bleeping Computer, Hacker News, Dark Reading, all of those kind of, even like the Cyberbeat website. So those are awesome websites. And if you can find a way to organize a lot of those sites, like I use on my mobile device, I use an app called Feedly, and it's still available. And I could just feed in a lot of the different websites I like. And I like to think of those as like a tip of the spear kind of thing. So they're going to give me an interesting look of what's going on, what's new, and always use those perspectives to do the what if moment. I tell this to students all the time. The what if moment is, what if this happened to me? Like CrowdStrike, for example, right? Or anything. That's a kind of a weird one, but we could kind of look at, the SolarWinds or AMI and other kind of key variant mess ups and such, Microsoft mess ups and such. We could look at all of these and start kind of saying, okay, well, what are we doing? Do we have a policy for this? Do we have a practice for this? Or we have some training for this? Do we have some things that we're doing that help us to be more preventative towards this? I think, the more you kind of consume some of that content, the more your program can benefit from that. And you can be a real good risk advisor towards that. I think that's awesome. And again, love the community. So I'm going to recommend Cul-de-sac. I love that group here from where I am. They're my favorite little local security group. So if you've got a local security group in your area, absolutely take part and be a part of that network and, build relationships with others. If you don't have a local security group, see if you can join one remotely, because some of them do offer that capability. So that's awesome that you can be a part of a group that is of like-minded individuals that think in security and technology and love and are passionate about the field. So that's an awesome one. Go to conferences, B-Sides. We have so many of those good opportunities to meet and grow our network. I think that's going to be the other big one for me, is the most you can get connected with people, the better. And then practicality. So practical labs, I think to me, it's got to be TryHackMe. A part of my daily coffee routine is reading some of these websites, going over some of the review of things, but absolutely doing a few of the TryHackMe rooms is going to be having to be a part of it. And so I love that feel of the TryHackMe or Hack the Box, whatever your preference is, to give me a little bit more of that. I'm going to do a lab just to kind of see if I can kind of understand what's going on or learn a new thing. I love those opportunities like that.
Yeah, no, that's great. The only other thing I'll throw out is podcast, but if people are listening to this, I expect that they're listening to other podcasts. As a matter of fact, I am, as of today, the same day I'm interviewing you, I'm interviewing Risky Business, which is probably the most impactful one for me for a lot of what you're talking about. Is they put out newsletters, they talk about the news, and I love your risk advisory. Risk advisors, by the way, because I think that's a good way. And I think that's kind of where security's heading, is that we're not going to be the department of no. We should be like, here's your risk. If you go this way, this might be a better way. Here are your options. Which way do you want to go?
Yeah, I think that's really good. Even when I do pen testing, when I write an executive summary, I try to make it as close to understanding that, here, this is going to be a report card for you, how you're at right now. It doesn't mean that you're stuck here. We can use strategies that I'm going to explain here and I'm going to detail out so that when we want to look at the report and go through things in the future, your cybersecurity is only going to get better. So I think that's really, really important to be that advisor to the business.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Any closing thoughts?
No, I want to thank you again, Tim, for having me on the podcast. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And if you want to get some training concepts, we would love to help you guys in whatever your career field is, technology, cyber. Love to have you guys in one of our Security Plus class. But again, thank you so much for your time. Appreciate you.
Yep. Is that trainingconcepts.com?
Yeah, you can find us at trainingconcepts.com. We're on Instagram and TikTok too. I think it's at trainingconcepts.sc, but reach out to us. We'd love to have you guys in the class and the training and get you guys all knowing about what are the strategies to break into cybersecurity, advance your career.
Cool. All right, Ralph. Well, thanks for joining me to discuss how to navigate a career in cybersecurity.
Thanks so much.